All right, welcome everyone. Chris Petri here. Thanks so much for coming by. Well, we're going to work on some cubism. A little bit of a change just in subject matter. Always fun to try some new and different things compositionally. So we'll create this painting. We'll have everything on camera at all times. We'll have our Extreme Beginners palette, which is the Prang Oval 16 palette. Incredible colors. We're going to show you how you can put this all together. In the beginning, we're going to be working on the pencil drawing kind of intensively, using some stencils and templates, doing a little bit of layout in the beginning of the video, and then probably about halfway through the video, then we start getting into the painting portion, mixing all the colors, and we're going to talk about all the fun stuff you can incorporate into your painting like this. Your favorite colors. We're going to use a predominant color scheme. I used the golden color scheme, which would be mostly all gold, and we did a beautiful golden wash over the entire painting at the end, and we used the glazing technique for this. So wow, you learn a lot of great stuff, a lot of great watercolor, classic watercolor tips and techniques and methods. So I'm hoping you'll get excited, and we're going to get started right away. And again, the beginning is more intensive with your pencil drawing and doing that. You can simplify this idea if you want to in your own way. You're the artist. You can also improvise and do things a little bit different than we do here on my channel. I don't ever feel that you have to follow everything, exactly as we're doing it here. Do it as it suits your own taste as an artist. Make it more simple, so on and so forth. But again, we'll have our palette on the camera at all times. And again, we're going to go over all the details that you'll need to put this together. And I'm hoping you'll enjoy the video. And let's get started. All right, we just saw the finished painting, and we're just going to get right into the details of how we got there. So again, we're creating a beautiful cubism style painting, watercolor painting. And you don't necessarily have to have all the items I'm going to show right now. In all actuality, all you really have to have would be just our Prang Oval 16 watercolor set. This is a beginner set, the Extreme Beginner set. I call it the Extreme Beginner set because when you're first starting out with watercolor, this is the best set to start with for paints because you don't have to do any kind of maintenance or care with it. You just spritz it with a little bit of water. So you just have a water spritzer bottle like this. Holbein makes them. I have all my art supplies incidentally down below in the comments section. All my art supplies. It's all real simple. Everything's linked to Amazon. I shop on Amazon all the time. I really don't go out and spend money on gas anymore and fighting traffic and people that are trying to cut me off on the road and all that kind of stuff. It saves all the hassles. I just continue and have fun painting at home, and Amazon does all the difficult work. They bring everything with their trucks and their vans, and so they do a lot of the hard work, and we benefit from it. So anyway, here we go. We spritz our paints with some water. That's our first start. And again, the Prang Oval 16 set is very inexpensive, perfect for a beginner. So if you're just starting out, maybe you're not quite sure if you're going to want to get fully into watercolor painting, with the tube paints and a lot of the fancy gear and palettes and more expensive paints. You start off with this simple set, and you get the feel for watercolor. And then after maybe a week or a month, or a couple of months, maybe, let's say, or even a year, then you start moving into your other more advanced style art supplies, like the tube paints, a better palette, maybe a metal palette. I like using metal palettes myself. But in any case, that's just kind of, getting into the weeds here a little bit. But I like to mention things as we're working along here together, because I know some of you are brand new, and welcome. If it's your first time here, it's great to have you. I'm really excited that you're going to start watercolor painting. Great hobby. You can take it with you anywhere if you want to go visiting or traveling or weekend getaways or around the house or outdoors, maybe in the backyard or, anywhere around town. You could just sit down on a park bench and do a quick painting with a sketchbook and some paints like this. So watercolor is extremely versatile. You can bring it anywhere you want to go. It's easy, cleans up easily. There's no problems with that, so you don't have to worry about it really making any kind of a mess or anything. In any case, we'll continue on here. So, of course, all we need here is an office pencil. I'm using an office pencil here. It's a 2B, HB. And then we have the Extreme Beginners brushes. I'm going to use two brushes most of the time. And these are going to be the two wash brushes. And these are by Princeton Art and Brush Company again. Great deal. If you look down below, and you can even research some of these art supplies, these brushes, they come in a set. of like 6 or 7 or 8 brushes, and very inexpensive to start out with for beginners. So, or if you have to get some brushes, some flat brushes like this, maybe you don't have flat brushes and you don't want to spend a lot of money on flat brushes, let's say right now, and you just want to get a few to start out with. These are great to start with. Anyone can use them any level you're at with watercolor painting. If you've been painting years or just a few years or whatever, you can always get a nice Princeton Art Brush company set of brushes again. And they also have, we'll use this one too as well. This is the smallest one we're going to use, the flat brushes, the wash brushes, like that. So we'll have 3 sizes of the flat brush. And that's really it, the brushes, and then you have the paint set here, but I do want to use all flat brushes or wash brushes as they call them. I'm not going to use any round brushes because everything we're going to do, of course, is the cube, squares, basically. So I'll put my brushes over here to the side. That's the brushes we'll be using. Of course, our pencil, we're going to have to get our grid here first. The next thing I would say is, again, you don't have to have any of these more advanced art supplies, but this is a simple Statler stencil, square stencil template. And you can imagine any kind of watercolor painting or any kind of other artwork you're doing, just drawings and things like that. If you like to have some nice precise squares, this is your template right here, from large to very, very small. And then this is even a little bit more, this is a larger, this is made by Fiskars, and this is the large template for some larger squares. So it's kind of like, this would be your very, very tiny and small up to your mediums, and then here your mediums and very, very large. So we'll use these. Again, these are things you don't have to have. Just, I'm going to kind of measure, so you'll see with the measurements of how to do this, so you won't need necessarily to have these, but these are nice to have. You can do a lot of paintings, especially if you really like the Cubism type paintings. So if you like this and you want to create a lot more paintings like this, fantastic. You would pick up these because you're going to, these will make your life easier. You can imagine all the kind of variations you can get, all kinds of interesting ideas you can have working with templates like this, and it makes your life easier. So you don't have to be, you wouldn't have to be using pencil lines with measurements as much. You can just use those and with minimal measurements. And the last thing is the golden mean calipers. These are readily available online on Amazon. Those templates are also available on Amazon, I'm pretty sure. And if they're not on Amazon, most likely you can get them at like a Blick's Art Supply, or maybe like a Cheap Joe's. There's some different online watercolor supply stores online. You can look those up if they're not down below. But I don't think the templates or this calipers are down below in the comment section. But in any case, these are basically can give you a beautiful space division in your paintings any way you want to create that. So here, let's start out with our golden mean calipers, and we're just going to make some hash marks. Okay, so we have the hash marks at the end. These are just a given. Those are the edges of our boundary of our rectangle, our watercolor paper. And then here, this line would be the golden mean here. And all that is just, the golden mean is basically in history, the artists of many, many years ago into antiquity, they were always trying to find out what was the most pleasing placement of an object between two endpoints. And they would ask everybody, and they would talk to people, artists, they would talk to just average people on the street that were looking at their artwork, and they would eventually found that everyone did find that this space division, like this here, was optimal. So that was the most exciting and pleasing and pleasant spot you could put something. So if this, let's say this was a shelf. So let's say this whole line here across was a shelf. If we were to put, let's just say, a vase of flowers, most, maybe 75, 80, 90% of people would always say that the vase looked better on the shelf, on the mantle, right at that location here, the golden mean, versus in the center. So maybe some people said, yeah, I like it in the center better. But most people all the time would always say, yeah, it looks more pleasant, more pleasing, and just more enjoyable if it's on this line here, which is a little bit past halfway across your sheet of paper like that. So that's what these do. These just give you that no matter what space you're working in, the golden mean is always at your center point here, at this point of your calipers. So the golden mean going this way is right here. If we flip these over, it's here. If we wanted to make a golden mean space division over here on the vertical, we would say it's here. And if we wanted to make it the other way, we could turn the calipers over and make it over here. So that's all that is. It just gives you a really good overall pleasant, really enjoyable composition when you're using the golden mean as your space divisions for different things that you're going to put into your painting, objects, or in this case we're using the cubes. Alright, so I'll do that. I'll use this space division here. And we'll call this our first space division here, which we're going to use the golden mean. And what I'll do is I'll just take a T-square ruler like this, and I'll set the bottom of the T-square ruler on the bottom of the paper line there, like so, and then slide it over like this. And we'll just make a line going across like this. That'll be our start point. And we're just going to have fun. I'm just going to do this real loosely. You know, I will use the golden mean, though, to kind of give us a good start. And then also, we're going to do the golden mean this way. So I'm going to put the golden mean here, lower, in the picture like that. So again, this is just giving me some fun things to work with and enjoyable things to work with as I'm going here, so that I'm not just sort of throwing in a bunch of squares onto my paper. I'm actually using some tried and true compositional methods and techniques that all artists have used since long in history. So there we have it. That can be our great starting point. And then from here, I think that's it. I just wanted to get those two golden mean points, one this way and then one over here, and that's fine. Now we'll move over to our templates. So the first thing I want to do is I wanted to use the idea of the larger squares or cubes are on the outside of the perimeter of this painting, and then they get smaller as they go in. So it's kind of going to create like an effect of like a funneling effect or a hallway effect, like we're looking down into a hallway or like a arcade or something like that, you know. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start out, and maybe I'll start out with this one here. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just going to put it in the right hand corner, upper right hand corner, and then just go right around like this. Okay. And then maybe this one, I'll try to use this one here. Now if you have this line here, let's work with that. Let's try to stick with using this grid pattern. Let's keep it within these 4 quadrants of the paper. So let's find a square that works here. Perfect, that one works good. Okay, I just set that down like so, and we do this. And you could just trace the line of the paper where the tape is, like that. So we have one here, one here. I would say I'll go again with this one here up top. So I'm going to repeat that up here. And what I'll do is right when we're done with these 4 large cubes, and we'll leave this one just like that, I'll measure these for you, and I'll also give you the measurements of the paper, so this way we have kind of like a format that you can work with. So now I'll take my ruler, and the first thing I'll do is I'll give you the overall paper size. So we're working with the paper. So the actual paper size I did tape in on the ends a little bit, maybe like a 1/2 inch there, 3/8 of an inch to a 1/2 inch. I just taped all the way around, put some tape board on there, artist tape. The actual paper is 9 by I think 12. Let me see if I'm correct on that. 9 by 12. So my paper size is 9 by 12. I trimmed this paper down off of a larger sheet of paper, but you can buy 9 by 12 size or 10 by 4, 11 by 4, 14 by 11, 11 by 14. You can really work on any size sheet you want to. But if you want to get this one exactly like this and use the measurements, then you'll be fine. You can just use these. So it's a 9 by 12, and maybe we'll jot this down on some paper. Let me see if I can find some paper. So now's a good time. We'll take a quick break. I'll get a piece of printer paper, and we'll just jot down some notes here. So you have the notes of the dimensions of all the squares as we go. Maybe the main part of this design here you're going to want to kind of have with writing down some notes is this first part here that we're starting with. Other than that, I think you can kind of just use your own creative ideas as you work within the rest of the drawing. But for the start of the drawing, it's probably great just to get the golden mean measurements, the overall sheet of paper measurements, and then the first few cubes that we created here to start with. Okay, so if we can get that, then you basically have the overall start to the design, and then from there you can kind of see that you'll be able to kind of create your own design effects that you want to. Okay, all right, so we'll be right back, and I'll have some notes ready for you. When we get back, we'll start creating some notes. Okay, be right back. All right, so we're going to start out just by saying that we're going to start with a 9 by 12. Maybe I'll use this here. So I'm just going to use this for a stencil just to go around. This will represent our paper, 9 by 12. Okay. Okay, so this is our 9 by 12 paper. And then, to get our golden mean, we put the golden mean on the 4 3/4. So we're just gonna, let's just take this. We'll actually just use what we've already created as sort of a template. Okay. And then we just went with this like so. And then we made our golden mean over here. So if I sort of center this like this, that gives us about and that gives us our golden mean like so. Like that. And then what we'll do is we'll do the measurements. This is 9 inch by 12 inch. 9 by 12. That's our paper size to the edges and the border of the paper. Like that. And then I'll just measure over here to get our dimensions here. So this is 4 3/4 inches. 4 3/4 inches here. Here is 7 1/4 inches. 7 1/4 inches here. There. 4 3/4 here. And again, this is all you're going to need to start. This will be the perfect start to your drawing when you're working at home, in your studio, at home, your kitchen table, wherever you like to work. You're the artist, you're going to figure out your workstation where you like to work with your artwork. So now we have our space divisions here, exactly as it is here. And then we're going to get our vertical this way. And we'll put that over here. So we'll take our ruler this way, Okay, this is 5 1/2 inches. 5 1/2 inches, and you can convert that to centimeters if you want to. And then the last final bit here is 3 1/2 inches here. 3 1/2 inches. So those are the exact measurements you would use with a standard ruler. And if you do those exact measurements around the outside of your watercolor paper, and you make your hash marks, and then you draw your lines across with your ruler, and get everything all set up, you're perfect. You have it. You have this is the basic exact blueprint of what I just did on the paper, all the measurements. So I'll leave this on camera for a few seconds or so. You can always hit the pause button. You can always too research if you. I mean, I'm not the most techie type person with all the technology stuff, the phones and the computers. I get around on the stuff and I can work with it okay. But there's some people obviously that are really gifted with that. So maybe if you have a hard time with computers and things like that, you could ask somebody like that's your relatives, like maybe a grandson, a granddaughter, or a son or a daughter. You just ask them, how do you do a screenshot or screen capture? You can even look it up on YouTube, how to do a screenshot or how to do a screen capture. This way you can sometimes take some of these parts of the videos and then hit pause and then do a screen capture. It's a couple different buttons you have to press, and then it's I think I did a video on it too. But in any case, you could do that as well, or you just hit pause and then get your measurements here, kind of make this same template on some paper like this, or a piece of watercolor paper, and then you have it. And then you can start off with this type of format. And then here you can start off with squares. Let's do that. Let's create two. We'll do this in a different color. So I'll get maybe a red pen. Okay, I'll use a red Sharpie maybe. And then I'll just use a little bit of a smaller ruler now. And we'll start over here and we'll just take a look here what we have. All right, so that's 2 1/2 inches over. So we're just going to do this. And this is 2 1/2 inches this way. And then this way should be the same thing. Yeah, 2 1/2. So that's a perfect square. 2 1/2 inches, 2 1/2 inches. Like that. And then we use the same one over here. So we could just do that same idea. Put our square in over here like this, and just 2 1/2 inches, 2 1/2 inches. Like that. So it's the same as this one. Okay, and then this one here we leave just as it is. So we'll just create our arrows just to give us make sure we understand the boundaries here. Okay, and then we can just measure these. And these are 4 3/4 by 3. So 3, 4 3/4 inch, like this. Like this. And that's this square here. And we could even just say 3 inch by 4 3/4 here. 2 1/2 by 2 1/2. 2 1/2 by 2 1/2, like that. And that's really it. One more. Let's do one more here. This one would be, again, 4 3/4. 4 3/4. Actually, I'm sorry. That would be 3. So I'll see if I can find some white tape. Correction tape here. This would be 3 inches again too. 3 inches here. And this would be over here. I think we did use a different measurement over here. Yeah, 3 1/4. So this one's a little bit different. 3 1/4. Like this. And then we could call this one 3 inch by 3 1/4. Okay, so there we have it. We have all of our basic measurements to start this. If you, before you, if you're going to purchase some stencils, you can work with those. Some templates, you can work with those, like we showed in the beginning. But if not, it's fine. You can work with these dimensions here, and then from here you can just create your own designs with a ruler. So you can take your ruler and start building other squares and cubes within this, with the idea that we're going to actually, as you saw in the beginning, the smallest cubes are going to be here, and then work out larger as we go here, like that. So we're just going to build out larger and larger cubes like that in all directions. And these are the largest ones on the outside here. Okay, I'll leave that here for just another second. And again, please hit pause if you want to jot down all your measurements. We'll keep working on our drawing. And what I might do is I'll probably just use my template here. And I'll probably start out with, I'll start out here. And again, I'm just having some fun doing this. Then I'll move up to a little bit of a larger size here. And you could create rectangles too. So you don't have to just use squares, you can use rectangles as well. Feel free to just create any old square and rectangle shapes as you want to go. Like this. Then you might take some of your, and you could work up the sizes as you go, so you kind of keep a track of what size you're using here. I'm trying to keep a little bit of a track on what I'm using here. And you can leave some space in between them, that's fine. Get as creative as you want. It's your painting, it's your artwork. You're going to create things the way you want to. It's really limitless, your amount of creativity you want to use. Okay, so you just... What I thought we would do, though, is leave this like this. So you could take your pencil and just make an X here, like this. A light, very, very light X, like this here, like this here, like this here, and like this here. If you put a very, very light X, we'll erase those later, but these are the ones we're going to want to leave the largest squares. So I'm just trying to recall that. That's what we wanted to do here. Just for fun, just to see how it works out. We were kind of looking for that idea of things funneling in kind of like a hallway or an arcade, something like that. If we were looking down a trail or a path. And then we can kind of see how these squares here, they're getting there. But we want to leave those squares on the outer edges. Those are going to be the largest ones. And then anything from there we would make smaller. And so I'm just going to continue on here. So we're having fun. And we're just going to keep going. I'll pick up my pace a little bit. I'll start working my way around here. Again, you can leave You can leave spaces. I think leaving spaces might look good between the squares. You could butt up the squares to one another. You can leave everything squares. You know, maybe you don't want to have any rectangles. That's fine too. It's all up to you. So I will make my largest squares again over here on the outer border. So maybe I'll do that. I'll just tell myself, let me make my largest squares on the outer border like we started. Okay. And you can see this is like your time of drawing is going to be, you know, this will take some time to do. So at this point, I think we'll stop here. You kind of have the idea of what I am creating here is a really interesting effect of just the larger squares on the exterior corners and sides. And we're just diminishing the size of the cubes and the squares and the rectangles if you want to make rectangles. So we can make some rectangles here. You could find like that. And that's all we're going to do. Just keep working this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the tape and finish up and do all the rest of the squares, because this might, you know, take, you know, maybe the next half an hour. This might take me a half an hour to fill in all these squares, approximately. And I wouldn't want to bore you with all of that. We're probably more excited. We want to paint. We want to get painting here and use all our beautiful colors and really create this composition. So let's, in this painting, let's do that. I'll do this. I'll speed up the process. I'll finish up all the squares, but you can see exactly what we're doing here. Nothing, it's not rocket science. We're just getting in the squares, largest ones on the exterior of the rectangle, the outer perimeter of the rectangle, and then as we go in toward the center, here's our very, very center of the painting. So we made the center of the painting actually right here, and then everything's going to work to this point right here, this point right here, where we made before when we started. All right, so good luck. And we're going to see you in about a half an hour, but with the, you know, with my video, we're not even going to notice. But let's finish up our squares. Again, do as much creativity as you want with this, filling in squares, rectangles. You know, you don't have to make them as small here maybe in the center if you don't want to. You can make them maybe a little larger. But this is the effect we would want, though. A very, very small, tiny square here right at the center of the painting right here. And then from there, again, we just out to the edges where we have our large squares. And then we put those X's with very light pencil line just so we know not to fill that in with any more squares. We want to keep those large. All right, so we're going to see you in about in a second or two. All right, so we're finished. While we were away for the break, I just wanted to... this was the stencil I used while we were away on break. And you can see I finished everything. And it basically was just a matter of taking the stencil, the template, and just working all my squares around. And I think I started from the center here at the smallest squares, the smallest cubes, and I just worked my way out. So I just started here with the smallest size cubes here and just worked around and just kept until I was finally at our original cubes that we started with at the outer edges. And then now at this point we can actually lift up the X's we put in these squares on the outer edges. And again, I just mentioned that I did put those very light, super light X's in these large cubes on the outer edges of my painting, just so I know not to fill them in when I'm putting in the rest of my cubes in this composition, in this painting. So there we have it. We're all set and ready to paint. And then as we're getting ready to paint, we can just have one basic goal here with our color scheme, our color washes for this composition, and that's to have one hue dominate the whole entire composition. So you can take any color you would like and kind of just tell yourself that you're going to use the majority of the color you're going to use in this composition will be such and such a color. It could be blue, yellow, orange, red, purple, green, whatever it is that you like. So your favorite colors, maybe you're matching something for some decor. Maybe you are going to put this in one of your rooms of your home or your apartment or your place, and you want to make this colors match your decor. Color of your walls, the color of the carpeting, color of different accenting pieces you have in your house, your home, your place. Very simple. We just have in our mind one dominant hue, one dominant color will, be the main wash across this whole entire painting, and then we'll add any other colors you want to it, just as long as we have that main color dominating this composition. So what I'm going to do is, I have fresh clean water, so I have a water bucket that I keep over to my right here with water, so I keep that over to my right. So I always have my water bucket on the right, and then my palette over here on the left. So I'll put this over here. And we're going to, again, I think we just mentioned we had our brushes that we're going to use. The flat brushes by Princeton Art and Brush Company. We have our Prang Oval 16 watercolor paint set. Phenomenal for starting out with watercolor or just for practicing. Anyone can benefit from using the Prang Oval 16. It's a great fun set that just is so user-friendly. You just spritz it with a little bit of water, and then in a couple minutes all the paint is ready to be ready to go. And that's it. So we have that. What I'll do is we're going to use the glazing technique. Usually I'll mention that, I always mention I have my book down below in the comment section. My book is phenomenal. It shows you all my techniques and methods that I use in watercolor, as well as exercises to work on when you're first starting out in watercolor, so you can get up to speed on brushwork, how to handle the brush, how to handle the paints, what colors you're going to be using, color selections. I cover all of that, and there's actually a 2-minute video right down below here in the comments section. And what that does is that 2-minute video, I flip through every single page of my book. So you'll see that I have over 60 or more of my best paintings in my book. And they're beautiful all-color pictures. And as well, in the beginning of the book, I have a lot of exercises and compositional notes and really good tips when you're starting out. So you start out in the beginning of the book learning a lot of foundational things you'll need for watercolor painting, and then through the rest of the book you'll see how I paint. And I'll show you all the colors are listed for each of the paintings, and you have years and years of fun painting with my book, along with my book. So in my book I describe the glazing technique, which we're going to use here, and that is covering the whole paper with a light wash first of whatever color you're going to choose for your color schemes for your paintings, and then from there you let that dry 100%, and then you come back over the top when it's dry with your subsequent washes, your subsequent other colors that you're going to be using on top of your foundational colors, your first wash, your lighter washes. So what I'll do is I'll take my largest flat brush that I have, just the 1-inch, and I'm just going to go over this whole paper one time with a very light bit of water, just like this. And that is the glazing technique. Getting that first light, clean, fresh, clean, crystal clear water. You want to start out with emptying your water container. If you've been working and you have some water left in your water container, you want to clean out the water container, make sure you have fresh, clean water in there. And then that's all you have to do now is just go over the entire paper with just a really quick light bit of dampness, a little bit of water to your paper, and just work it into your paper. You wouldn't want water flooding off the paper and running down. That would be too much water. The right amount of water would be just as if you're painting like, you know, a piece of furniture or a wall or a door or something like that in your house. If you've ever painted in your house and you're just starting out and you're saying, wow, can watercolor be so difficult? No, it's not difficult at all. This type of, right now we're doing the glazing technique. Your first glazing technique is going to be your first crystal clear water, fresh clean water, with a very light coat across the whole paper as you go down, just like this, just to cover it. Like, again, like if we're painting a wall in a house or a room, bedroom, a sitting room, a kitchen, wherever you're painting, if you ever painted in the house or your places, so forth, or furniture, if you restore furniture or work on things like that, if you're handy, you know, that's it. A very, very light, clean bit of water. Then we're going to come over here. And again, my favorite, I have a lot of, I really enjoy gold colors, earth tones. So I'm going to go with my orange and yellow for my undertone for this painting. So I'm going to use orange, yellow, a little bit of red. That's like a red-orange there. Yellow, gold. Maybe a little bit of brown to tone it down a little bit. Like that. But that's going to be my undertone. An orangey yellow. Like a golden color. Like a yellow ochre-y kind of color. And you can have it so that you could also add some blue here, just a little bit. Some blue with a little bit of orange. Almost like a bluish green. Like that. And we can just add maybe a touch of that as we're going across with our golden color here. Our golden orangey, yellow ochreish kind of color. Let's just do it. And this is all we do. We come across on top of the first bit of water we put on to wet the paper. So we're working on a damp paper now. And you're just going to go over with your beautiful color, whatever underpainting you want to paint this. You could do blue, any color. Pick any color and say, this is going to be my dominant hue. I'm going to put this underneath the painting. And then whatever colors we put on top, that's okay. I'll put a little bit of that bluish green too in there. Just here and there. I want to kind of have that excitement of the warm and cool to our advantage, working to our advantage. As you can see, I'm just taking all of that beautiful gold and oranges and I'm putting it on the underpainting here. And it's supposed to be light, just like this, a very light wash. Not like a lot of paint. Quite a bit of water mixed in with the paint so that we have that. Just like that. And then maybe a little more blue over here. And I have to add this all quickly. Just like that. You have to put it in fast as you're making your washes here. And that is it. This is all we're going to do. Then we have to let this dry 100%. So now, as they say, it's like washing paint dry. Well, that's the same thing here. We don't want to watch this dry. This is going to take a couple hours to dry if you're working in just an average temperature. A couple hours would probably be fine, or you could use a blow dryer. I use the blow dryer all the time to dry my work as I'm working, especially making videos, so we can move quicker and get to our next steps faster. If you were maybe making something like this, or maybe a larger sheet of paper where you're going to maybe make a larger painting, and it's for something like you're going to use it for creating a painting for your own place or for a gift for somebody else, something like that, or if you're for a gallery showing or something like that, or a competition where you're going to submit your artwork for some competitions or gallery showings, things like that, you'd want to let it dry naturally for the couple hours or so and then just come back. So you might go do some errands, do some other things that you might have to do, and then you can come back and you'll notice that after about a couple hours the paper will be flat again. Right now the paper is buckled because we've added all this water and paint to it. So you'll notice when it's really 100% dry, when the paper is back to its flat state, like we started when we were drawing on it. And that's it. And you could, again, use a blow dryer to speed up the process. And that takes about 5-10 minutes probably at most. And you can sit there and just carefully move your blow dryer across until everything is completely dry. And then we'll begin our other washes on top of this once we're done with that. So I will do a quick bit of blow drying to this to get this dry, and then we'll start up again and we'll see how much fun it is now to go in and do the rest of this painting. Alright, so now the paper is really 99% dry, no buckles really. We're going to move on to our next step, which is we're going to work on filling in our cubes. What I want to do here is, just so I make sure I don't run into the issue of maybe not keeping my painting the predominant golden yellow look, I'm making sure I make a nice large area here in the center of my palette with a lot of yellow and gold. So I'll do that. I'll add a little bit of water to that. Okay, so now from here, you know, you can mix any colors you want. Maybe we'll put some red over here. We'll put some red, orange. I think up top I'll put some of the blue, like that. Some purple. Some green. Okay, so we have plenty of really beautiful colors to work with, and again, we can use any colors we want as long as we make sure that we are sticking with that dominant hue of the golden orange. And then you can take these and add lots of water to them. So we can even think to ourselves, let's go with 3 glazings. The first glazing, of course, was our light wash first. Now let's go with our second. And we can just enjoy the second glazing here. And we can just use our flat brush like this. And just have our enjoyable time creating some nice effects. You could add a little bit of some effects with some tissue. So you could lighten up your wash a little bit if you want, like that. You can go in and get some orange and blue. And we're just going to basically try to leave those small spaces between the cubes, the first glazing, which was that light color. So let's do that. That'll be kind of a goal. And if you do go over them, that's okay. So don't feel like you have to, you know, no big deal. If you paint over a couple of those, we'll call them like joints, it's okay. You can paint over them, that's not a big deal. Another thing we always just remember with watercolor, of course, is once you put your wash on, like once you go over with your one wash like this here, or like this here, you only have about a minute or 30 seconds to a minute to add another little bit of color to it if you want to. After that, you can't really add any more to it because it'll start to create what they call blossoms or cauliflowers. So that's just something to keep in mind. There we go. When we get into some of the smaller cubes, we'll use our smaller brushes. And again, I'm keeping in mind that we're sticking with that gold and orange as our main color. But I will be mixing in, as you can see, some of the blues. And then maybe after I add that blue, then I go back in and get some orange in there, and yellow and gold, like that. And this I'll paint right off the page, off the paper, like that. And I'm having an issue with my board. I changed my board on my video here, on my tabletop. Let me take some blue duct tape, or painter's tape. I'll just try to tape down my board a little bit. It keeps sliding around. That's not good for the video. It's quite annoying, I'm sure, to see that happen. So I'll tape this down. I'll try to make sure I tape down my board somewhat. Here, I'll go over on this side. Tape that down there. Okay, good, so it's not going to move around on us. Okay, so I will continue on here. I painted over that joint there, not a big deal. And again, they only have a little bit of time to add some extra wash there. And you can mix and match your colors any which way you want to. Now you can see I'm starting to maybe do a little quicker pace. But then I'll pick up some blue greens. Spice it up a little more with some more of that intense blue. Then I'll move to a smaller brush. Let's see. And I'm working from the top down, of course. And here we'll just... So this brush fits these cubes much better. Making sure I use my gold, my golden colors. That's really important. If I find that I have a smaller cube, I'll just come in and get the smallest brush I have. A few more there. I pick up my golden colors there. Maybe some orange. Like that. And some reddish color here. And again, I'm going to keep working that gold in. Here maybe I don't have any pencil line, but I'll just make my cube like that. And again, the key is let's have fun with this. We'll just work our brush techniques here. We're going to add some orange and red here. Some more straight gold there, like that. And infuse in a little bit of the blue, bluish green. And since this paper is all dried down here, I just rest my hand on here. So you can get some really good, you can get some good technique going with your square brush and resting your hand on the paper. As long as you're not resting your hand in the wet paint, you're fine. So that's why it's kind of easier to work top down. You can just kind of keep resting your hand on the paper as you're working down. Or you could work left to right, or if you're left-handed, you could work right to left, like this, across the page this way. And this way you can always be resting your hand on the paper and getting your good technique in to get your washes in here confidently and working within the cubes that we've created. we could go in, get some orange and red here and there, then maybe some purple and blue. And it's just a matter of having fun getting in these washes. And you can take as many breaks as you need to. And I'm always telling myself, make sure you get lots of gold and orange in there for your color washes. And a little bit of the blue, green, purple. I'll often have a tissue just to dry off a little bit of the water. So if you want to take a wash and kind of smooth it out a little bit, you just dry off your brush like that, and then you can smooth around the paint a little bit. And then if you have washes like this, you let them be. Don't try to go back in and touch up until it's 100% dry. So that's the one thing with watercolor. You almost can't. It's not good to fuss with it once you put the wash onto your paper. You're better off just letting it go and then wait till it dries 100%, and then you can go back in and add some washes over it if you want to adjust it. Like this. With the smaller brush now. So I'll pick up some of that gold again. Then maybe we'll pick up our very large 1-inch brush again for this square, this cube here. Pick up lots of gold right across like that. Then I'll carefully work up to the pencil lines. Sometimes I'll work up to the pencil lines carefully. Other times I go over them. So it's you can do both. And then we have this really beautiful golden wash on there. Maybe some purple and blue in there, just to maybe a little bit of red and orange. Rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the water on a paper towel, and blend that in there like this. And we're going to continue. Let's get some more gold mixed here and orange. Plenty of mix with water, and we'll just go right across here. We could even go like this. So you can practice different brush strokes. Vertical brush strokes like this. You can go horizontal brush strokes like this. And these are all in my book. I go over all the brush techniques I use. You can go vertical, upward vertical like this, vertical down strokes, horizontal. Then you can pick up some more. Again, some nice blue, gorgeous, some blue, purple. Get that paint on there. Dry off the brush a little bit. And then we can just smooth out that wash. And again, you can always take some tissue and blot up a little bit, get a little bit of some variation with some blotting technique. All right, so this is really looking fantastic. We have maybe we add in some orange and red down here. So we'll do a couple little bits of red and orange. Rinse off the brush, dry it off with the paper towel a little bit, just so we get some of that nice, beautiful orangey red. We have quite a bit of orange and red up here, so we want to just make sure we're kind of balancing out the painting with our colors. This is a good practice, too, for keeping an eye on the colors that we're using in our composition, our painting here, so that we kind of make sure we have all of the mixes of colors that we're using here, you know, evenly distributed along all these cubes. And I think we're accomplishing that pretty well. I think we do have that working in our favor here. And let's see, we're going to go with some more here. Maybe some purple and blue. With that gold mix. Go more of a reddish color here. Gold. A little bit of purple and blue. And some more bluish green. And we'll put in a little bit of gold to that. A little bit of red. Blue. And I paint over lines occasionally here and there. No big deal. I paint over pencil lines sometimes. Sometimes I'll work within the pencil lines. And again, I'm making sure I have plenty of orange and gold. And now I'm getting to the point where I have a lot of smaller cubes, so I have to remember to downshift and work with my smaller brush. So I think from here I'll probably just use the smaller brush now to get the rest of the washes in. And of course, I'll be mixing up the colors as always. Gold. Plenty of gold though. A lot of the gold mixture. And orange and gold. And some red too. And put some blue in there. And that's another fun technique of watercolor. Wet into wet mixes, putting in a bit of color and then adding more colors to that mix. That's always a good thing. Pick up some red there. And of course you can be more meticulous with your painting, with your brushwork if you wanted to take your time more. I like it a little more loose looking, not so like really super tight with painting right up to the lines perfectly, the pencil lines, but you could do that if you like that look, you know. It's fun to maybe try different techniques, like painting it really very accurate to the pencil line and then maybe keeping it less accurate. That's fine too, to practice different ways of painting. I'll need to purchase another brush, another flat brush like this here, because I noticed this one is, if you can see it, it's sort of, I think I used it I used it for some oil painting, I think, a while ago, and then since I used it for oil painting, I think the brushes didn't come back to that really nice original texture and feel. So now it's a little bit difficult to get some accurate lines with this, but it's working pretty good. But again, I'm not too focused on. And then what I think I'll do is I'll make these squares here. I'll make these probably really dark. So I'll add some blue and purple up here, like that, and some red to it maybe, like that. I think I'm going to make these kind of dark. I might even switch over to a fine point round brush. And let me see what I have here. Okay, I have this brush here. This has a pretty good point on it, I think. I need a better one than that, actually. Let's see. Let's go into the brushes here. This is the actual brush that comes with the set, the Prang Oval 16 set. I think yeah, it seems like a lot of my brushes, the points are worn off. So I'm trying to go with maybe a darker purple with a little bit of red. For these here. Now when we make these darker, these cubes here, it'll be like more of a kind of an, you know, it'll draw the attention of the viewer, of the person that's viewing the painting. They're going to kind of look at this and be more kind of focused in on this area here. So that'll be good. And we'll get some more red here and some gold. And voila, there we have it. Okay, so I think this is looking pretty good. I think it's an interesting look, and we're not finished. We're actually going to do a few more cubes here. I think we have a few left that we're going to work over here. I'll try to soften this one up. I don't want to make that one dark. And again, we're picking up the gold colors. Lots of gold and orange. Like we talked about in the beginning, try to have your main, you know, primary color that you're going to think of when you create the painting, and then you'll stick with that throughout the whole painting. So you can see that this does have quite a bit of a lot of gold and orange in here. That's kind of a lot of gold and orange in reds. And what we can even do is we'll show you next how we can kind of go over with a few more glazings to make it even more interesting. But I think that might be, so we're 90% complete now. We have all of our cubes painted in. I think I see one more there. Sometimes they're hard to see if we're missing one cube. This one here I should probably, like here, like that, and then the same thing up here. This one has to be. And then if we paint in a couple of smaller shapes like this, adds to the, even though 99% of this painting is cubes, if we add in a few shapes that are not cubes, like these elongated rectangles here, it just adds to the variety of everything. So we have a little bit of variety beyond the cubes. All right, so we had a couple different ideas we were thinking about as we took a break, just to figure out what we'll do for our final bit of work to this painting. Cubism is beautiful and exciting, and I think we're going to make a decision on this. I think I'm going to go with a light bit of golden white wash over the top of the entire composition to kind of just smooth it all out, kind of make it a nice golden layer on top of this, a glazing on top. So the thing I'll do is just get fresh, clean water. So that's my first thing I'll do is get fresh, clean water in my water bucket. And I'll put that over here on the right hand side as I'm getting prepped. I'll take some paper towel and just dampen my paper towel, and I'm just going to make sure my palette, I'll clean up my palette before we start this final glazing to our painting. So I'm just going to do my normal process, and then what I'll do is I'll take fresh clean water and put it over here in this central area of the palette, and I'll just pick up again some more water out of the palette with my brush like this. I want to get enough in there, so I would think a good amount of puddling of water should be fine. We don't want to add a ton of water to this, just actually a little bit, a nice coating. Then what I'll do is I will find my titanium white paint, and I'm sure it's here. It's probably, let's see. Okay, titanium white, Holbein titanium white I use a lot. I'm going to put that there. And then a little bit of that gold and orange mixed with that. So I'm making gold and orange mixed with titanium white and water. So this is almost like a really light yellow ochre kind of a look. But that's what we're going to use to go over this. And another thing I wanted to mention is I am going to go with this larger brush, because a larger brush like this is a little better. Even if I had something larger, I'd probably have something around the studio, maybe a little bit wider than this, but we probably just don't want to go over with too many brush strokes over the top of this as we're putting this final glazing on top, this light glazing, very, very light, minimal glazing over the top. When we're doing this, we don't want to like keep going over it and over it and over it. We just kind of want to do it in one, one passing is like, let's just start up here, and we'll just do this. So I'll just go right across like that, pick up more paint and water, and just do that. I try to keep it very, very light, and just keep going. And I'm focusing my attention on where I last put that wash. I don't want to keep going over again. I don't want to keep going over and over the same spot. I just want to go over with one brush stroke if I can. And I think that is it. If I can do that, I'm going to be set. And I think we have it there. I might need a little bit more. So I'll quickly pick up a little more of the white, titanium white, orange and yellow, and titanium white. More some yellow. There we go. And I'll just finish the bottom here. And that's it. Let's let that dry and see what effect that has on everything. But I think it's really going to look fantastic once that dries. And then before I let that dry, I usually just take some tissue and or paper towel, and I go along the tape like this. I just kind of go along the tape carefully, so that if there's anything extra water and wash there, we can just lift up that extra water and wash that might have dripped over onto the tape. This way it doesn't go back in and disturb the wash along the edges, because we want to try to preserve as much of the painting as we can. We don't want to let washes and things infiltrate back into the painting itself. So that's one of those things we can kind of keep an eye on as we're working. Okay, so this is the next step. We have to watch paint dry. So that's our next step here. We're watching paint dry. I would let this dry naturally. I wouldn't use a blow dryer at this point, because it's probably better if it seeps down into the paper slowly. And then we'll see what we have on that final look. So we'll come back in a few minutes, maybe half an hour to an hour. I'll let this dry naturally, and then we'll start the tape again, and we'll see what it looks like. Alright, so we've come back after about a half an hour, and I think this really does look really pleasant and pleasing and positive, like with light golden wash we put over with a little bit of the titanium white. Kind of just softens everything up really nicely. So overall, I'm really happy with this. Let's peel off some of the tape here, see what it's looking like with a white border. Maybe we'll even find a couple of watercolor mats for this to try out with this painting. And it kind of looks good when we isolate it and take off the tape. It accentuates the colors, the golden colors of this composition with the blues and the purples, like the cools and the warm and cool everywhere. Really does absolutely look phenomenal. And okay, so great to have you working with me here. It's a lot of fun creating paintings here on YouTube. I'm always painting new compositions, new subject matter on a weekly basis, so I'm hoping you'll subscribe on the right-hand side below so you don't miss a thing. If you like more paintings like this, where we work with maybe some more, Cubism a little bit, let me know. I'll do more Cubism style paintings if people are interested. We do, again, everything: landscapes, your classic watercolor compositions and paintings, landscapes, seascapes, beach scenes, lighthouses. We do city scenes. We do a little bit of still life paintings. We do lots of flower paintings here. We do as well a little bit of portrait painting and figure painting occasionally. So we kind of mix it up, everything, so everyone gets a little bit of something they like. And I'm hoping you'll continue to come back and paint along with me. We have such a great time together, and it's so much fun. Just forgetting about everything else in life and in the world, all that's going on, the stresses, and we could just take an hour or two and just have some time where we can enjoy artwork and our watercolor paintings. So happy painting, everybody. You have a great evening, great afternoon, a great morning, and we'll see you soon.